Good day to you. I bet that most of you had a model when you were young. You had a Barbie or a Ken or a model truck or a model airplane. Models give us two things in life. They give us the perfect depiction of an object or a person. That's what we consider a swimsuit model to be, a male or a female, to have the so-called perfect body. Not to everybody, but a mass conception of a perfect body. That's a model. A model also, though, gives us a way of understanding something that is big, complex, and often abstract, like social media. That's why you have a model airplane, because when you stand next to a real airplane and you're standing at the cockpit, you can't see the tail. When you're standing on the left wing, off the left wing, you can't see the right wing. It's too far away, it's too big, it's too complex. You can't see the inside of the plane either. So we have models to take a look at to help us understand things that are big and complex. And that's what this chapter is all about today. It's all about models that are applied not just to social media as we're doing in this course, but models that are applied to all forms of communication. We won't be covering every single concept in the chapter today. Some of that will be for you to think about in your discussion post. But I will be talking about the main themes today. So the main themes are, first of all, that there are two models that we draw from to try and understand this big complex thing called social media. The first model is an interpersonal model, interpersonal communication being between two people, also called dyadic communication. It's very much relationship-based. People who have that relationship with each other are intimate partners, or they're brothers, sisters, or really deep friends, or people that have some way been in a mentor relationship with each other. They have a deep connection with each other. One of the most famous people to contribute to this field is Erving Goffman, the sociologist, wrote a book called The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life. And he has this idea that in interpersonal communication, when we look at it from a model standpoint, that one thing that goes on is self-disclosure, that people willingly reveal private information about themselves to others in interpersonal relationships. So you reveal, for example, that you have a fear of bridges to somebody. And now they know that, and it builds trust. And hopefully if you're driving around, you go over a bridge, that person is aware that you're not feeling that great. Sometimes maybe they'll tease you, but it becomes part of that relationship, that self-disclosure. And that happens all the time on social media, right? Just think of your followers and your friends and what they choose to post on there. Photographs of themselves, revealing where they are, talking about their feelings, revealing political beliefs, etc. It's self-disclosure. Another part of the interpersonal model of way of looking at communication, and specifically social media, is to look at relational norms. And these are sort of unwritten rules about how you are supposed to act in your relationships. Okay, so for example, if you're in an intimate relationship with somebody and they kiss you and look at you, what are they expecting back? They're expecting you to kiss them back. It's a norm. And if you don't do that, you don't break the norm. If you break the norm, there's an unease that goes on. Think about that for social media, too, in terms of what you're expected to do when somebody posts something. And somebody will say, hey, I've seen people say, for example, I'm in a hospital. Only my real friends are the ones who have come to see me. Okay, there's a pretty explicit relational norm about what you're supposed to do if you haven't gone to see a person. Also, as part of the interpersonal communication model is the concept of anonymity. Now, this is a little bit a dicey area to consider, according to the author, because traditionally in media, regular media, TV media, or what we call legacy media, old media, radio, newspapers, magazines, legacy media, older media, typically anonymity has not been as accepted as it is online. That is, we know who the people are who are the television stars. We know their real names. Even though they may have movie star names, we know that they have other names behind the scenes. So we know Justin Bieber, we know actors by their names and their pseudonyms. But online, you can create a profile on Facebook and name it whatever you want. You can call yourself The Fish if you want. And so there is this idea that there is more anonymity online, although I don't necessarily know that that is the case. I think that actually having a digital record of yourself online invites people to want to trace that down and try and find out if they can figure out who you really are. I know, for example, that I had somebody posting some not so flattering things about my book, and the name I didn't recognize, but didn't take me long to find out that it was somebody from my past. So I'm not quite sure about that dimension of interpersonal communication when we look at that model of anonymity. All All right, now let's go to the second model of communication. It's mass communication. This is a model that looks at media as media reach hundreds, thousands, and millions of people, as we discussed in the last instructor video. And so what we're looking at is what people do in mass audience situations when we're looking at this model. And we know, for example, that this will probably be bringing up something from those of you who have taken intro to communication. We know, for example, that in the mass communication model, there are certain components that are at play when a message is created. Those components include a source of the message. And then the message gets encoded into content. And then that content gets carried on a medium, like a telephone or a newspaper or a magazine or a computer. And then it's received by a receiver who interprets that message, provides feedback to the source of the message. It takes place within a context, and it takes place within a culture. Hopefully that's all stuff that you've had in your past classes before. That is, in essence, the mass communication model. But also the research was updated after that original line of thinking, establishing those components, to say that, you know what, we ought to also think about opinion leaders in mass communication. Those are people who you trust in your life, and they help shape your opinion. So they're your parents, they're your teachers, they're your coworkers, they're your lovers in some cases. They're people that you look up to and you trust. And we know that happens in social media. We know that, for example, Twitter is based very much on celebrities. And for many people, celebrities hold a certain sway in terms of their style of clothing, for example, in terms of what they are interested in. Otherwise, they wouldn't be famous to begin with. And so this is an example of how the messages flow through opinion leaders also in social media. Also, one of the considerations in the mass communication model, I say consideration because it was never really resolved, is whether the audience is passive or active. In the old school ways of studying mass communication back in the 50s, right after World War II, the audience was presented as being passive and, I have to say, stupid. Just was susceptible to anything that went on. Propaganda was the big thing that scholars were afraid audiences were being unduly persuaded by. Propaganda specifically during World War II about kill a Japanese today, kill a Jap today, and those kinds of messages that were playing right here in the U.S. in our movie theaters. And so the audience was thought of as very passive. In fact, they even referred to the silver bullet theory. That is, the media shoots the bullet, it goes into the audience, and the effect is immediate. But since then, we've come to understand that audiences are more sophisticated, and actually the technology gives audiences more choices today in their media and more interactivity so that they can stop something if they don't like it, they can skip it, they can change a channel. The audience has more power today for sure. So we think of the audience today as more active. It's a more active audience that's at play today in mass media and social media for sure than ever before. I mean, where else do you have a medium other than your own phone that you're controlling the content, you're controlling when you're sending it, you're controlling when you're receiving it? Audiences today are very, very active in my view. All right, now the book goes on after that to talk about other components of studying mass communication in general and social media in specific that are important when you're trying to understand the big framework of social media, which is what this chapter is really trying to do. So one of the considerations next that it talks about is who owns the media, who owns Facebook. We know it's Mark Zuckerberg. Who owns Twitter? It's those three guys that started it at a university and didn't have college degrees. Who owns the other social media, and how is the impact of the ownership affecting the way that you use it and also the meaning that you get out of social media? That's something that you can ask yourself on your own. Who owns Snapchat? See if you can figure that out. See if you can figure out what purpose that ownership group has Snapchat for and how you are contributing to that purpose, or whatever social media platform. Next up is structuration. Structuration is an interesting concept. I don't like the way that the book describes it, so I'm going to describe my own definition. Structuration is really how the technology structures the content. Okay, we know that, for example, in television, that television is very much geared towards visual images. That's what TV does. It's got a big screen, right? It really is able to tell something visually. And so that's why fires almost always lead big city TV news stories, because fires play very well on television. It's structuring the content to suit what it does best, which is to tell visual stories. You don't find fires so much in radio news stories. You don't find them so much in newspaper news stories, certainly not at the front, unless there's a picture that they can include. So that's structuration. Now think about how Facebook and Twitter and social media structure your comments. There is, for example, for example, not like button on Facebook. You can't not like something. Sure, you can put it in a comment, but it's not given the same weight as the like button. That's a tiny example. I want you to think more about this. It's going to be in your discussion question today. I want you to think more about how the social media platform that you're using is structuring the content that gets posted on there. The next concept that comes up in the book is technological determinism, sort of related to what I was just talking about. It's the idea that whatever technology is developed determines the way that we communicate. I was just thinking yesterday when I was at Starbucks to upload my video for the class, I don't drink coffee. But I was thinking, how many people drink coffee because they have a cell phone? Just think about that, because they have to get to somewhere where they can charge their phone and use wireless because they're out of data. And so where do they go? Starbucks, that's what it's famous for, great wireless. And so people go there not just to get wireless, but now they start, I need to buy something here, I'll get a coffee. Now they start drinking coffee. Now they're coffee drinkers because they have a phone. So since they're coffee drinkers, they're also sitting in close spaces and either buried in their device or talking very close with people. So their whole way of acting in life is influenced by that phone. That's what technological determinism is all about. The book moves next on to media ecology. Media ecology is actually a program that one of my colleagues attended, Professor Paul Lippert. Media ecology is based very much in New York University. And it basically has to do with there's a whole culture that exists within a medium, So you consider that Twitter people, right? People who speak quickly. That's related to the 140 characters. They speak in short bursts. People who like to put out things in codes and use lots of hashtags and things in Twitter and other kinds of abbreviations. These have to do with, these are things that describe the culture of Twitter. It's not necessarily the culture of Tumblr. It's not necessarily the culture of Instagram. It's the culture of Twitter. And that's what media ecology is all about. Marshall McLuhan, probably the most famous mass media scholar, is also the most famous media ecology scholar. And he's the one who said the medium is the message. You know that if you've studied communication. The medium is the message, meaning the fact that you're on the phone is the most important thing. Not what you're actually doing on the phone, but you're on the phone. The medium is the message. But he also said that, Marshall McLuhan, a Canadian scholar, that we use media to extend our bodies. So our phone becomes like an antenna. It helps us see out into the world. It helps us extend our sight, our senses out into the world, and that's media ecology. All right, the remaining concepts in this book, in this chapter, are Web 2.0, kind of a fading concept now, but it basically refers to the idea that the web creates and sustains itself collectively. The web creates and sustains itself collectively. That means that we, the people, we're the ones that are putting it together. Things like Wikipedia, for example, or even a Facebook post that gets lots of replies, lots of comments, lots of shares. The people are creating the content that's going on the web that's keeping it going. And then comes the concept of convergence. Convergence has been a long, slow process. I first remember it being talked about right around the turn of the century, 2000. It's the idea that everything is coming together into one technology. We don't even really consider a TV to be a TV anymore. It's a monitor or it's a screen. And in that screen, you can play back video. You can play TV channels. You can stream from Netflix. You can put photographs from your phone on the TV. So everything is coming together. No longer do we really have newspapers, right? We have what's called a newspaper, but they have websites that put out digital content too. So convergence is everything coming together. And then finally, the chapter finishes with platforms, and I do not like this definition at all. I'm going to go with my own definition here. A platform, the book says, is a system coordinating the exchange of information. But it's really more than a system. A platform is a set of rules that go with the technology and the software for how you post content. That's the way that I think of a platform. It's the technology and the rules that go with that, as well as the software that dictates. When you go on to D2L, for example, you got a lot of forced choices that you have to make. If I want you to turn something in, I've got either the Dropbox or the Discussions tab. I don't have other options. And so this is what the platform of D2L is making me do. And the platforms of the social media that you are on is something that you're going to be studying all semester long as you learn its limitations and also its freedoms for these RSC posts that you're making, and then Project Viral, which will be exciting for next week. For now, however, I hope you have a great day.